Imagine your brain treating emotional loss like a physical wound, because neurologically, that's exactly what's happening. When we hold tight to something that's already gone, our nervous system doesn't distinguish between psychological and physical pain. The same neural pathways that light up when you stub your toe activate when you're desperately clinging to a relationship, a dream, or a version of yourself that no longer exists. Think about the last time you couldn't let go. Maybe it was a job rejection, a breakup, or a friendship that slowly dissolved. Your brain interpreted that loss as a threat to survival, flooding your system with stress hormones, creating a physiological response that feels more like injury than emotion. They tell you to just move on, but your body is experiencing genuine, measurable trauma. The groundbreaking work of researchers like Bessel van der Kolk reveals something profound. Attachment isn't just an emotional experience, it's a biological survival mechanism. Your brain is literally trying to protect you by keeping you connected to what feels familiar, even when that connection is causing deep, persistent pain. Imagine investing years building a sandcastle, pouring every ounce of energy into intricate details, only to watch the tide steadily erode everything you've created. That's the emotional sunk cost fallacy, where you keep defending a crumbling structure simply because you've already invested so much. Daniel Kahneman's groundbreaking research reveals a profound psychological trap. Our brains are wired to resist acknowledging that past investments don't guarantee future returns. Have you ever noticed how you'll stay in a draining relationship or pursue a dead-end career path, not because it serves you, but because leaving feels like admitting defeat? Every additional minute you spend trying to salvage what's already broken isn't persistence, it's self-harm. They tell you to never give up, but the truth is some endings are actually beginnings in disguise. Your nervous system doesn't calculate investment, it only experiences pain. And the longer you cling to what no longer grows, the more nutrients you drain from your own potential. Letting go isn't weakness. It's the most courageous recalibration of your internal compass. Grief isn't a highway with clearly marked exits. It's a wilderness where paths twist, loop, and sometimes vanish completely. They tell you grief is a predictable sequence: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But the truth is far more complex. Imagine Sarah, who lost her father 3 years ago. Some days she feels fine, almost normal. Other days, the smell of his cologne in an old jacket sends her spiraling into profound sadness. Have you ever noticed how healing doesn't arrive in neat, scheduled packages? Researchers like Pauline Boss reveal that emotional processing isn't linear. Your nervous system doesn't follow a checklist. It moves like water, sometimes rushing, sometimes pooling, sometimes freezing, sometimes flowing underground where you can't even see it. You're not broken because your grief doesn't match a textbook diagram. You're human, beautifully, messily, unpredictably human. And in that unpredictability lies your most profound strength: the capacity to feel deeply, to transform, to honor what was lost while still creating space for what's emerging. Imagine holding a butterfly so tightly that your fingers crush its delicate wings. That's what control does to our emotional experiences. The more we grip, the more we destroy the very thing we are trying to preserve. Neuroscience reveals a stunning truth: our attempts to control outcomes actually intensify our suffering. Have you ever noticed how the moment you try to force something to stay, a relationship, a job, a moment in time, it seems to slip through your fingers even faster? Control is a neurological illusion, a survival mechanism that backfires spectacularly when applied to complex human emotions. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between holding on and self-protection. Instead, each tightened grip sends a signal. This thing is essential for survival. But what if survival isn't about maintaining the status quo? What if true resilience means learning to open your hands and trust the unfolding? In David Hawkins' profound exploration of emotional release, he suggests that surrender isn't weakness, it's the ultimate act of psychological strength. Not giving up, but giving space. Not abandoning, but allowing. Your healing happens not in the desperate clutching, but in the courageous moment of letting go. Have you ever caught yourself replaying a painful memory, like a movie stuck on an endless loop? That's rumination, when your mind becomes a hamster wheel, spinning without moving forward. Your brain convinces you that if you just think about it one more time, you'll unlock some magical understanding. Sarah used to spend hours dissecting her breakup, reconstructing every conversation, imagining different responses. Each replay felt like solving a puzzle, but she was actually building emotional quicksand, sinking deeper with every mental recreation. Constructive processing looks different. It's not about endlessly analyzing, but understanding. Think of it like metabolizing an emotional experience, extracting insight, then letting the rest pass through. The mind wants to protect you by keeping you hyper-focused, but true healing requires movement, not memorization. Psychological research shows that rumination actually changes brain chemistry, increasing stress hormones and reinforcing neural pathways of pain. What if your repeated thoughts aren't solving anything, but actually recreating trauma? Imagine your attention as a spotlight, where you shine it determines what grows. Breaking these cognitive loops isn't about forcing positivity. It's about gentle, intentional redirection. Your mind is a powerful tool, but you are the one holding the toolbox. Imagine carrying a suitcase filled with old photographs and worn-out dreams. Every time you try to step forward, the weight pulls you backward, not because the memories are heavy, but because you've convinced yourself that who you were is more real than who you could become. Have you ever noticed how tightly we clutch our old identities, even when they no longer fit? Research in attachment psychology suggests that our self-concept isn't just a story, it's a neurological map we navigate by. When relationships end or dreams shatter, we don't just lose a connection, we lose a version of ourselves we've meticulously constructed. Sarah kept her wedding ring in a drawer for 3 years after her divorce, not as a symbol of hope, but as proof that her marriage had existed. Each time she opened that drawer, she was really asking, if this relationship isn't who I am, then who am I? They tell you to be persistent, to fight for what you want, but the truth is, sometimes fighting means releasing. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about changing your relationship to what you remember, creating space for a self that's waiting to emerge, more resilient, more authentic, and infinitely more capable of genuine connection. Uncertainty isn't a weakness. It's the fertile ground where transformation grows. Have you ever noticed how desperately we cling to predictability, mapping out every potential outcome, trying to control what can't be controlled? Sarah kept her entire life in meticulously color-coded planners, each hour scheduled, each possibility anticipated. But the day her carefully constructed plan shattered, she discovered something profound. The most beautiful chapters of life are often written in the margins of uncertainty. Your brain is wired to perceive the unknown as a threat, triggering the same neural pathways as physical danger. They tell you uncertainty means vulnerability, but the truth is uncertainty represents psychological flexibility. What if embracing not knowing is actually the most courageous act of self-trust? In Chris Guillebeau's exploration of life's unpredictable journeys, he reveals that those who tolerate uncertainty don't just survive, they create remarkable lives. Imagine uncertainty not as a void to fear, but as open space waiting for your curiosity, your creativity, your unexpected potential. The moment you stop trying to control every outcome is the moment you start truly living. Sarah held her grandmother's wedding ring for months after she passed, unable to put it away, unable to wear it. Each time she touched it, she could almost feel her grandmother's warm hands, not just the memory, but the actual sensation of skin-to-skin connection. This wasn't about holding onto an object, but preserving a relationship. Have you noticed how detachment often gets confused with emotional numbness? We think letting go means stopping ourselves from feeling, building walls, shutting down, pretending we don't care. But compassionate detachment is something entirely different. It's releasing your grip without losing your heart. They tell you to just move on or get over it. But the truth is, genuine release requires feeling deeply, not suppressing your emotions. It means acknowledging your pain, honoring your experience, and simultaneously recognizing that you are more than this moment of loss. You can love what was while creating space for what could be. Kristin Neff's research on self-compassion reveals something profound. When we treat ourselves with the same kindness we'd offer a dear friend, we transform pain into possibility. Imagine holding your hurt not with a clenched fist, but with an open, gentle hand, feeling its weight without being crushed by it. Have you ever noticed how the prospect of emptiness feels like a psychological black hole, ready to swallow everything you are? Sarah clutched her ex's sweatshirt for months after their breakup, not because she wanted him back, but because the fabric was proof that her life hadn't completely disappeared. The void terrified her more than the actual loss. They tell you to just move on, but the truth is, emptiness triggers our deepest survival fears. Your brain interprets empty space not as potential, but as threat. What if the silence isn't an ending, but an invitation? Brené Brown's research reveals that our terror of the unknown often prevents us from experiencing genuine transformation. Imagine emptiness not as a threatening darkness, but as a blank canvas, spacious, waiting, pregnant with possibility. Your nervous system wants certainty, but growth lives in uncertainty. The fear you're experiencing isn't weakness. It's your brain's protective mechanism, desperately trying to maintain familiar ground. When we stop fighting the void and start listening to it, something remarkable happens. We discover that emptiness isn't something to be filled, but something to be explored. Think about the last time you tried to break a habit. Maybe it was biting your nails, checking your ex's social media, or overthinking a past mistake. Your brain isn't just resisting change, it's literally wired to maintain familiar patterns. Neurologically, every repeated thought or action creates a neural pathway. The more you walk that path, the deeper and more automatic it becomes. It's like a hiking trail in your brain. The first time you walk it, you're pushing through bushes. By the 100th time, it's a well-worn highway your thoughts travel without effort. Sarah, a client I worked with, spent 2 years repeatedly messaging her ex after their breakup, not to reconnect, but to prove to herself she could still reach out. Each message was a tiny ritual reinforcing her attachment, her brain interpreting this repetition as a survival strategy. What if your habitual responses aren't protection, but prison? Researchers like Charles Duhigg reveal that breaking patterns isn't about willpower, but understanding your brain's reward circuits. You're not weak for struggling to let go, you're experiencing a complex neurological dance between comfort and change. The secret: small, consistent interruptions, micro-choices that gradually reshape your neural landscape, teaching your brain new pathways of resilience. Imagine a woman standing at a crossroads, her fingers tightly wrapped around a map of a journey she no longer wants to travel. Acceptance isn't about surrendering, it's about choosing which direction you'll intentionally walk. In acceptance and commitment therapy, we learn that true healing isn't found in erasing painful experiences, but in developing psychological flexibility, the ability to stay present with what hurts while moving toward what matters. Have you noticed how resistance creates more suffering than the experience itself? Your brain interprets constant fighting as continuous trauma. But what if commitment meant committing to your own growth, not to the pain you're experiencing? Stephen Hayes, who developed this therapeutic approach, suggests that value-driven action is the antidote to emotional stagnation. It's not about eliminating difficult emotions, but about creating space for them while simultaneously moving toward what you deeply care about. Your pain doesn't define you, your response to that pain does. When you stop fighting your experience and start listening to it, something profound happens. You reclaim your power to choose, moment by moment, how you'll live. What if your deepest wound could become your most profound source of transformation? Post-traumatic growth isn't just psychological jargon. It's the remarkable human capacity to not just survive pain, but to emerge fundamentally reshaped by it. Sarah kept a journal after her divorce, documenting each painful moment. At first, her entries were raw, angry, filled with grief. But slowly, something shifted. The pages began recording not just her loss, but her emerging strength, tiny revelations about who she was becoming. You've probably felt stuck in your pain, believing it defines you. But consider this: trauma doesn't have to be a life sentence. It can be a doorway. Your nervous system is incredibly adaptive, capable of rewiring itself around wounds, transforming suffering into resilience. They tell you to get over it quickly, but the truth is healing isn't linear. It's a landscape of small breakthroughs, unexpected insights, moments where you suddenly realize you're no longer imprisoned by what once broke you. Imagine your pain as a landscape you're learning to navigate, not with a map that promises easy escape, but with curiosity, compassion, and the radical understanding that your capacity for renewal is far greater than your capacity for suffering.